Hi, in this video, we'll have a look at updating the system defaults. This is quite an important section, and it really is at the core of how the app works. So let's have a quick look at it. Click up here, we go to System Settings. If you don't have access to System Settings, then you need to speak to the person who set up the account to make these changes. So we click on System Settings, and then we go into System Defaults. So you can see straight away some really important things. We can click edit, we can update the company name, the address, the telephone number, the email address, and also the website. So the email address is quite interesting because we need to, once we update this, we need to go into there's a way of configuring Rhino so it actually uses your email account. So why is this important? This is important because when you send out an estimate or when you send out an invoice, it can actually come from your email address, even though you're using the app. So to do that, you need to enter in your password. You need to select who your email provider is. And if your email provider isn't here, then you can select custom. And then you can enter in the host details. It's normally something abc.something.com, and the port number, that could be 26 or 47 or whatever. Once you enter in your password and stuff, it's really important that you then click on test local email, and that will attempt to send out an email, and it'll tell you whether you've configured your account properly. Okay, one other little thing, well, two things worth noting. If you select something like Gmail, then Gmail requires you, and some other accounts require you to do one extra step. You need to log into Gmail, and you need to go into the security option and allow it to interact with third-party apps. Sometimes they say less secure apps, but in the email, in your email account, you're actually saying let another app, and you normally have to specify which app, and you just say let Rhino use your email account. And all it'll do is we're not reading your emails, we're simply pushing emails in. So if you send out an estimate or if you send out an invoice, you'll be able to go into your sent items on your email account, and you'll be able to see the fact that that email went. So a little bit complicated, but very, very powerful. If you don't configure this, then it'll send out your emails and your invoices using a generic email address that comes when the system is first installed. But this is well worth doing. Other things you can do in system defaults is you can change the tax settings. So in our demos so far, we've just kept it nice and simple. But if you want to if you want to enable the VAT or your tax on your estimates and invoices, then you can just click this on. You can update the label for that, so it does tend to vary in different countries, and also the default rate. And if you are going to charge sales tax, most countries require you to specify on your invoice your tax reference. Okay, and then the final thing which is relevant to the UK is you can switch on. A lot of people don't do business internationally, so we keep this turned off. But if you do, then you can click this, and then you'll get an extra drop down on your contacts to say are they UK based, European based, or rest of the world. And the same when you record expenses, you can specify what region the expense was incurred in. And this is all to do with reclaiming or submitting your VAT return. So that, once again, very powerful, and we can configure it for different regions. We then have estimates. So this is where, when we did an estimate earlier, you could see that it pulled through default terms and notes. Well, you can update this and click on save. This means the next estimate you do, you won't have to retype any of this, it just pulls it all through. The same when we went to send an estimate, This is the default text, so it'll pick up the company name that you're sending it to, and it'll have sales proposal description. So that's whatever proposal you've described when you entered in the estimate. And then it'll have dear customer name, dear Mr. Jones, please find attached the estimate for the work required. Once again, you can update this and put in your own text. And then, if you're happy with it, please contact us, confirm by clicking on this email address. So it'll input your email address, which we mentioned up here. And then it'll say yours sincerely, and it'll pick up all of the defaults from up here. Yeah, so that's quite powerful. We can do the same with invoices. This is your default terms, default notes, your default for creating the email. Very important point is when you do go to send an email for an estimate or an invoice, it will give the option to tailor the text. So if you know the person, then you can personalize the message. Yeah. Or for example, if you sent out an estimate and you need an answer this Friday, then you can actually tailor the text. Some other things up here. Do you want the invoice icon appearing against contacts, against an estimate, or against a project? It may not be relevant, so you can disable some of these. So when you first enter in an estimate, it'll say it's draft before it assigns it an invoice number. Some people change this to pro forma. So that's like a semi-official invoice that you can send to a customer, but they don't necessarily. If they accept the work, then they have to accept that charge. Otherwise, otherwise it's not a proper invoice. So then we have this we set in the prefix for the invoice. This could be your company initials or something. And if you're using this system to replace another system, and you've got an invoicing numbering system, and you want this to start at 922, then you can do this, and you can have leading zeros as well. So you can pad it out. Once again, you've got complete flexibility. Default payment terms and how many days. For some advanced, if you're doing work for large corporates, then they often require you to quote a purchase order number. Once again, for small companies, it's not relevant. And there's some more advanced stuff in here, which we'll cover in another section. Okay, and we scroll down. This is really important, configuring electronic payments. So this is where we can enable this, and we can link it in, click on this and set up a Stripe account or attach it to an existing Stripe account. What happens then is if you send out an invoice and this is configured, a little blue button will appear and it'll be paid by card, and they can click on it, enter in their credit card details securely, and Stripe manages the whole payment process. Very powerful. No more having to run down to the bank with checks and stuff like that. It just makes life so easy. We've also, do you want to enable integration? So we have some integration options to other software products. Do you want to enable the expense approval process? And this is quite a cool thing down here. So one of the things you've got is when you've got appointments, notes, and documents that appear at the bottom of a contact, or estimates, or invoices, or projects, or whatever, if you entered in a note, you can say, if it's just you, then you wouldn't bother locking it. But if you've got multiple staff and they entered in something, you might say, I don't want people fiddling with the history. So once you enter in a note, it's locked after 1 day. So then I can go in and I can see exactly when they spoke to the customer, what was the status, and they can't go in, nobody can go in and alter it thereafter. So that's quite a nice feature. The same with when you input a reminder. So I could give a reminder to someone else. I could put something in their diary to say, please ring the customer and check A, B, and C. And once again, you can stop people altering history by saying, lock that after 1 day, and so on. So some very powerful things which you would normally expect to see in a big company in here. This feature here is really powerful. It's just one button, but it's really powerful. So if you enter in something in the diary, normally a diary you just entered in and that's it. But if you switch on the confirm option, then, for example, if you had to renew your insurance next Monday, then if you went past next Monday and you hadn't flagged that as being completed, it'll appear up here as an alert. I find that really useful. It just means that you never forget things. So, and especially in a busy environment where you're chasing customers, maybe you're chasing up estimates, maybe you're chasing up invoices that haven't been paid. Once again, this helps to organize everything for you, and all of the alerts would appear up here. Okay, so that's the system defaults. The final thing to mention, which is really important, is the items that appear and the sections that appear under the system defaults are relevant to the features that you've enabled in the product. So for example, if I switched off invoicing, then the invoicing would disappear. If I switched off invoicing and estimates, then the estimates, invoicing, and sales tax would disappear. Okay, because they're not relevant. Sales tax is only relevant to those two areas. Yeah. And the same, if I enabled project management section would appear. If I enabled e-commerce or online trading, those sections would appear. So that's quite important. And it's good to understand why things appear and why they don't appear. And the plan is, or the idea is, the design principle is, if you only use one or two features, you don't need to be able to go in and configure it. You don't need to worry about the other sections. So it makes the app really easy to use. Good. That's system defaults.